So we're here, we finally did it. After this video, I have officially done every single base clan in Vampire the Masquerade. I haven't done Salubri, because that was added in V5, I'll get to them later. That's not going to be the end of clan overviews. I have a lot of interesting bloodlines to go through, but I also, here, can't say I saved the best for last. Now, hello new viewers, or returning viewers. I like to make it a point to make it very clear where my opinions lie, because I think it's a little disingenuous as someone who covers lore if I pretended to like something more than I did, or secretly didn't like something and then tried to stealth diss it. Toreador are like my least favorite clan in Vampire the Masquerade because I'm just not a fan of the surface level archetype they have. I think the Toreador have some very sick things. I've just never been a fan of like the pretty boy seductive vampire archetype. It's never been my thing. This is gonna be a slight who cares, didn't ask yap fest real quick, so skip to this timestamp if you just want to get to the vampires. So I guess like fun fact about me, I've never been a fan of vampires, like at all. I have my exceptions, largely World of Darkness. I think World of Darkness just handles vampires as a concept way better, alongside a lot of very spooky old Eastern European renditions. I've just never been a big vampire guy. I've just never really cared. Same with like werewolves and such. Like it's a big whatever moment for me. However, I also think vampires historically, like as a thing, is very interesting. And I think it's a really interesting artistic expression. I'm an artsy guy. I like to overanalyze art and I think it's a good thing. But vampires as a concept are very sexual, which gives rise to the archetype that I'm not a fan of, which I understand. I think it as a metaphor is really interesting. I think then the forms we see it in, the romanticized, basically that is a human being who occasionally needs to drink blood and is hot, I think it's boring as hell. This isn't even like me stupidly overanalyzing it. Like I'm talking Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like there's some undertones there that are very sexual. And like Count Orlok, be it the very recent movie we got, the original version of Count Orlok. I guess for the younger viewers, I say, like I'm not in this camp. The dude from SpongeBob. That story is super sexual. Count Orlok is a horny motherfucker. It's just like the act of biting and drinking blood is treated in a lot of fiction as a very sexual, sensual act, which I think is interesting. Again, I like vampires as a monster. I like how World of Darkness does it because they are monsters. You're firmly not human, and I'm just never a fan of when you're not a vampire, you're not really like cursed or burdened with this thing. You're just someone who has all the upsides and you just can't go outside sometimes and you drink blood. That's boring. Anyway, art yap over. I feel like it's fitting for Toreador, but whatever. Before we get into all that though, I do have to shout out my channel is affiliated with NordVPN. So if you want NordVPN as a VPN or NordPass for some password protection, use my link in the description. Get yourself some good like cybersecurity. Clan Toreador is one of the original clans, as in their antediluvian. Many different names. We mostly know her as Arakel or Ishtar, depending on the story. Was one of like the OGs. She was there in the first city. Her stories vary a lot because Toreador is a clan that had a big historian stint. I'll get into that a little later, but a lot of like the actual history we have on many of the different antediluvians come from Toreador scholars. You might have heard little tidbits of that in my other videos. However, when it comes to like them specifically, Toreador kind of takes a little bit of the Ravnos and Ventrue approach, that the original story isn't as important, the story is what matters, and they openly admit to embellish. I will give a very broad strokes and jump around the names Arakel and Ishtar, but as we know it, Arakel or Ishtar was an artist. Specifically, Arakel is noted to be a sculptor so great they actually touched Cain himself with her skill. Meanwhile, Ishtar was a bull dancer who also touched Cain with her skill. I don't mean that sexually. I mean that artistically, which she was later embraced, some stories saying by Enoch himself, like the first child of Cain. She was renowned to be beautiful. Apparently, she was so beautiful and pure, she was one of the only antediluvians to not receive a bane by Cain, because she didn't take part in the murder of the second generation. I don't really believe that, because, you know, we have other clans saying the exact same thing. I'll be honest, the only one I don't think got a bane was Cappadocius, because I don't think he was in his right mind when all the murdering was happening. I don't believe I don't believe Toreador. It is also noted in her story, the first city of Enoch wasn't called Enoch, it was called Ubar, which is like a real kind of place. It's a place that's treated kind of like Desert Atlantis because it is a lost city of the sands. And much like every single story of a lost city, there is no historical precedent for its existence. So this shit's a myth, which actually fits really well for Vampire because the first city was wiped out by a flood sent by God. So it would make sense if First City's remnants were a lost city. A lot of the story is later told by Catherine of Montpellier, a very prominent Toreador historian who really forwarded the Ishtar part of the story, and it turns very Greek. A lot of other Toreador historians don't agree with her telling at all, but it's kind of the best thing we have. Essentially, she went to Crete, she's got in a relationship with King Minos. Minos was like, make me a vampire. She was like, I don't want to do that, I'll make your son one though. And he fell to the beast like immediately and became the Minotaur. Later on, she also hung out with Gilgamesh, and it's noted Enkidu was there. Enkidu, their name for the gangrel antediluvian, who's known as Noia, and a woman. Enkidu is a man. But I'm brushing past a lot of this. It doesn't totally matter her story after this. The big thing though with Arakel is that reportedly she is not dead, she has not met her final death, and apparently later on she actually hung out with the antediluvian for Nosferatu, which apparently she was kind of cool with before he got cursed, because he used to be hot as hell and then he became ugly. The big events that happened later though were tied with the Ventru, the Bruja, and the origins of the Camarilla, because they kind of jumped from place to place, eventually ending up in Rome, but they also played around with the Bruja who were over in Carthage. If you go watch my Ventru video, I talk about this history. The Bruja had a really sick vampire society over in Carthage, the Ventru were creating Rome. Toreador tried to play both sides, but they quickly realized, oh shit, the Bruja are gonna get destroyed. We should hang out with the Ventru, which immediately put them in pretty big prominence with the Ventru, who would later establish the Camarilla. They're like one of the top 3 clans in the Camarilla, like at the top. It is from here that they, again, just jumped empire to empire. Constantinople, Byzantium, London, Paris, New York. They experienced lots of great art over the time because they established anywhere where there was large cultural impact. That's going from like the plays of Shakespeare to the plays of Broadway. Talking about like Michelangelo and his cool statues and paintings, or Michelangelo the Ninja Turtle, probably. The key thing, the thing you will hear constantly about the Toreador is that they love art. They love making art, they love appreciating art. It's an obsession for them. They love it so much they can kind of be added into some camps of some do create, others are like patrons. The entire image of the patron completely bankrolling a young artist is a very Toreador thing to do. The reasons for this are actually really interesting, as Toreador have talked about it here and there. Some give it a lot more of the Ravnos perspective. We're immortal, let's enjoy mortal life and appreciate what we have here. Another one I find really interesting is the idea that Toreador take a special care to specifically appreciate the world other kindred don't. They are predators dancing through this world of mortals, but they don't like stop and smell the roses. Toreador do. This extends to politics as well, because Toreador really love politics and some become obsessed with it like it is an art form. This establishes guilds. Literally, it's like the traditional concept of guilds, but it's also social clubs, gatherings of Toreador, as they will establish these groups that all have their own new hierarchies, or separate hierarchies. Say like you establish a poetry club in Toreador society, and there's like 2 others. Now it's gonna be backstabbing, jumping groups, inner politics to become the best poetry club. Though this also goes on grander and grander scales, as like record labels can be Toreador guilds, where now they get money and status from signing new artists onto their record label, and blood. They get blood as well. Toreador are a big fan of vampire politics and mortal politics because they just like being front and center in the limelight. It's very fun. They get to have a bunch of fancy galas and balls and a lot of tricky dealings. The reason for this is their clan bane. Their clan bane is edition dependent. However, it wasn't like fully changed in V5, it was just split in half, but I'll get to that. The Toreador clan bane is obsession. They are obsessed with beauty. In the older editions, a Toreador would struggle to pry their eyes away from something that caught their eye, be this a person, a thing, some piece of art, until that thing was literally covered, put away, or they could will themselves to turn. They were just obsessed with it. This obsession also made it so like a Toreador couldn't become a master of their own art form of choice, which again laid into the idea of them being a patron for someone else. They get obsessed many times with people. A lot of those people they're being patrons of are those obsessions. They like fall in love with them. and they dote on them. They just treat them like amazing little works of art. Oh, look at my new ghoul, he's such a great guy. Oh, look at my new child, they're great. And then like a couple weeks later, they get bored and drop it because the obsession ends, which sucks for the person involved with that. Like, oh shit, I got like a rich suitor. Hell yeah, this rules. They're like super great to me. Oh, and now they've ghosted me completely. This extends to their childer, who will be doted on for weeks and then dropped completely, left alone adrift in the vampire society. In V5, the split basically means that that obsession aspect is now part of their bestial compulsion. And their bane is it physically sucks as a Toreador to be somewhere ugly. If you're not surrounded by things that are just beautiful in some way, it is harder to do your disciplines. It just sucks to be there. I really like the whole Toreador bane, because for the 40k fans that are in my audience, it's just Fulgrim. Like, I'm talking book Fulgrim from Fulgrim. This is where the Toreador, though, get that archetype of being the seductive vampires. They are attractive, they use that level of attractiveness, and they get obsessed over people, genuinely seduce them just to drop them later. Really, the benefit is that they don't have dominate as a discipline. They instead have auspex for extra cool supernatural sight. It doesn't help though, because this increased perception is something the Toreador actually blame, in part for their obsession with art, as they can just perceive it better. Again, I don't believe the Toreador when they say we didn't get a bane from Cain, because I don't just think that it is a base level vampire thing that's passed down by bloodline. It is too much like a real curse. They have celerity for quick reflexes and super speed, and presence, which allows them to bend people to look at them, appreciate them, or look at them in fear. It really helps for the Toreador socialite in a gathering of mortals to just presence make everyone adore them as they coast on this wave of bliss. It's very Emperor's Children. Literally, if you're a 40k fan, you really love Emperor's Children, you're gonna love the Toreador, and vice versa. Even more for the connections. I don't normally talk about the Antitribu clans, I want to at some point, but the Toreador are still in like kind of good standing with the members of their clan that went Sabbat way back in the day. Because they're still Toreador, they're still given an invite to the party. The thing is though, the Antitribu Toreador are a lot darker because they really inhabit the concepts of Slaanesh. They take the pleasure and bliss of hedonism and they slowly get more and more and more depraved, really taking that artistic appreciation to sadism, causing and feeling pain. They just fully embrace that. And the other Toreador are like, hey, they're chill though. It's good for us to keep this perspective. It's good to have different opinions as like someone's torturing another person, I guess. That is, to a smaller scale, also a story with current Toreador and modern knights, as a lot of them haven't gone full, you know, Slaanesh sadomasochists. However, that whole like historical preservation and artistic preservation that they used to have, that's a very Dark Age way of viewing things, as in the setting, the Dark Ages. Because over time, Toreador have become more and more hedonistic to where they want that short-term bliss. They're just surfing on the waves of pleasure, having a great time, enjoying their own life, and doing what makes them happy and fully leaning into their obsessions. There are still like true artists inside the Toreador. In fact, one aspect of the Toreador is a fight between their elders and the newer bloods, who are like, dubstep is music, mom. That's not even me paraphrasing, that is like from the V20 like book of clan lore. The Toreador appreciate art that they seem as high status, high class, and makes you an important person. But that's changing in modern times. It's actually becoming even better with the internet, because now like Toreador can post things anonymously online. It's the great equalizer of how they used to act as like rich patrons. Now they can just become an artist with a screen name, no one knows who's doing it, and they can just post it. So, you know, all those like faceless streamers, YouTubers, artists, secret Toreador maybe. I imagine with modern knights there are still Toreador who play the art patron role. The difference is that we've had a big upsurge in like crowdsourcing and crowdfunding. So there's probably a Toreador paying someone a goofy amount of money on Patreon and then just dips at some point. Which with all that I say, hey Toreador out there, if you need someone to be a patron for, I apologize for me saying Toreador is my least favorite clan. The benefit though of me saying this, I am super susceptible to bribes. So you give me some super chats and boom boom, immediate S tier. I am joking, obviously, but that is the end of this video. So I want to first shout out all my channel members who make all these videos possible. Super appreciative. Thank you all so much. And I want to give a extra special shout out to my top tier channel members, that being Lucky Fine 23, Pork Chomp, and Czar Shadow. Thank you all so much. It's really appreciated. But with that, you know, like, comment, subscribe, join NordVPN, my link in the description, join my membership, do YouTube things.